Mental Maps is brought to you by Aruka Well. Aruka Well is a virtual holistic mental health service, providing psychiatric evaluations, holistic interventions, and when needed, medication management. For more information, check out Aruka Well at www.arukawell.co. That's www.arukawell.co. Welcome back to Mental Maps. As always, I hope this finds you well no matter what season of life you're in. Before we jump into the show today, I wanted to highlight something that's pretty cool that we're going to get created, and that is our weekly or regular newsletter, right? So if you listen to the advertisement as we start the show, Aruka Well is the clinical work that I do, the company that I created that really focuses on helping people restore balance. And on that website, if you get on there, you can type in your email and get signed up for our regular newsletter that'll be coming out. This newsletter is really going to consist of different ways you can improve your overall mental health, maybe supplements that we found that'd be very helpful, just different things you can try to elevate your mental health, whether you're feeling unwell or you're just trying to find some niches and ways to elevate yourself. So definitely get on there. It's Aruka Well, ARUKAHWELL.co. That's CO. And if you haven't signed up, as soon as you open up that website, there'll be a link that pops up. Put your email in, and we'll be getting that going really soon. So I'd love for you to connect with us. It'd be a great opportunity to gain some new information that we don't talk about maybe here, get more specific. Now, all that being said, back to our show, right? So today I want to talk about a concept that I've been working through. It was triggered by working with someone. I was recently working with somebody who's not doing very well, and we were trying to create some restoration. And so within that restoration, the person looked at me and was like, what do I add? What do I need to do? Is there a medicine I can take? And it made me think, how many times do we as humans feel unwell? And that's what the first thing that we go to. What can I add? What can I put into my body? And I think this is something that not only is maybe the cause of a lot of our illness, but also hinders our ability to feel well, right? And that is, why do we always go to adding something on? I think specifically here in the West, we find ourselves, anytime something doesn't feel right, the concept is, what do I put in myself to make it better, right? Is it a medicine or a supplement or a vitamin or herb or all these different things? And maybe for many people, the healing or the rebalancing isn't about adding something in, but it's about what you're doing with your body. So not putting something in my body, but doing something with my body. And I know that can sound kind of cliche, but I think many times this is what we see, right? And so within that, I'd like to kind of riff on that today and work through that. A lot of this, this idea really kind of hit home to me, right? It's not that I've got this mastered by any means. My wife and I, as well as a lot of our friends, we practice the Lenten season. And so during that Lenten season, we give up something. And I gave up coffee, and I'm drinking coffee today, so I didn't stop. But when I gave that coffee up, I noticed how much it helped me kind of get up and get going and kind of focus. And so what I began to see is that when that was absent from me, I began to look at all the things that I could add to it, right? Could I add more carbohydrates in, or could I add more fats in, or could I add more sugar? What could I do? And I was constantly looking at what could I add in. And it never occurred to me, maybe I should be doing something with my body, not putting something in my body to make myself feel well. And so you may be thinking well, what do you do? If I'm not going to add something on, if I'm not going to take a medicine, if I'm not going to do anything, what can I do? Now, hear me when I say this too. Medicine, specifically certain medicines, are incredible, right? The ability that we can feel unwell, have a virus, whatever, take a medicine. That medicine kills the bacteria or restores our wellness. That is radical, right? But many times, especially in chronic conditions or when we just don't feel well, we start looking for something, right? If I'm in the middle of the day and I'm feeling tired and I'm looking for energy, I'm looking for coffee or an energy drink. Or maybe if you're having a time where you're feeling really down, you start looking for ways to make yourself feel happy, right? Whether that's a substance, or whether that's a food, or whether that's social media. We're looking to add something into our mind and body to make ourselves feel better. But I think there's really 3 core practices that we can incorporate in our life if we're feeling unwell to try to restore the wellness many times. Now, what this means is that sometimes this isn't an immediate fix, But it also could lead into the concept of prevention rather than just treatment, which I think is pretty important too. And what I mean by that is many times we're just intervening when we feel unwell. What if there's things that we can do to keep ourselves from feeling unwell, right? Which is kind of a whole thing. But when you're in this place of what can I do with my body, I think the first one is movement, right? So many times when we're feeling unwell, we just start looking at adding something into ourselves. And I think I see this a lot with people who are finding themselves maybe feeling really down or really anxious, or maybe struggling with like dependency of certain substances and those kind of things. It's easy just to be looking for something to put in, right? We have to fill that space. We have to fill a space of whatever was once making us feel well. And so what do you do with the movement concept of it, right? Whether that's exercise or walking or art or just music, whatever it is that you find to be life-giving to you, what can you do day in and day out to make yourself feel well, right? Way different than, hey, maybe I need to take this herb today. Maybe instead of taking that herb, you go on a walk every morning and you move that body, right? Rather than put something in your body to make yourself feel better, right? The second one, and I think this is something that is getting a lot of love in our culture as well as in other cultures, is the concept of fasting, right? Which is actually the complete opposite of adding something, right? It's the elimination of something. Fasting is really interesting because we recognize, like, there in the spiritual concept, there's the spiritual growth that occurs in it. We recognize the science behind it and some of the stuff that happens to your body with ketosis and all those different things. But the thing about fasting is that it is healing through subtraction, not addition. And that can feel a little bit scary to us, especially here in the West, because we can go to extremes, right? How many times is it about more restriction, right? Less eating of this thing, less doing this one thing, and more of that things I cannot do. And that can feel really overwhelming. It can be triggering to some people. It can lead to people not even like maintaining it, right? Like, how many times do you see like diets and certain fad things fail? Not because they're not healthy, but because they're just so restrictive. Unless you're extremely regimented, the ability to maintain it is almost nil, right? But one of the things about fasting is that in this place, instead of adding something in, right, instead of taking in a medicine to feel well and to build resilience, or to take an herb or whatever that looks like, being able to eliminate those things and being in a state where that stuff is not present in your body maybe can lead to some pretty radical healing. We see this in different cases, not only in our country, but in countries across the world, where people heal themselves with fasting, right? Like, we hear this ability for people going on really long fasts, and I think that's something you have to look at. But if you're feeling unwell and maybe you're just at a place that, maybe you're constantly anxious and you're kind of keyed up, what would it look like to go a day and not eat any food and only drink water, rather than add something else in that makes you feel calmer? I think there's going to be some, tension as you lean into that. But I do believe on the other side of that can be very, very healing. I've had seasons where I've fasted, and I know that it's something that is very helpful to my own mental health, but it can be challenging too. And you have to do a lot of mindset stuff to it. And that's definitely something I think, we can talk about later on in the show. I don't want to riff on it all day. But at the end of the day, if you're feeling unwell, rather than putting something in, what can you do to get something out, right? And one of those could be fasting. Lastly, one that I think is, a hot topic and something that we don't get a lot of is rest, right? Rest is something that we don't talk enough about. We talk about sleep, but we don't talk about rest. And I think rest and sleep are two different things. I know many people who sleep but don't feel rested. And I know many people who attempt to feel rest but also may not sleep very well. I think together there is what creates all healing. However, the concept of resting is doing something that is healing to the body and the mind, that creates a fueling experience, right? There's a saying that says, if you work with your mind, you need to rest with your body. And if you work with your body, you need to rest with your mind. And I see that for myself, right? I do a lot of like mental work. And so I'm working with my mind. So how do I rest with my body, right? And so what that would look like is maybe not, sometimes that could be just not doing anything at all. But many times for me, that's doing something, right? Like I'm building something, or I'm being active, or I'm going on a bicycle ride, or whatever that looks like. I'm doing something with my body that fuels me, that creates fulfillment for me, right? Whereas I know other people who do a lot of like physical labor, they'll rest with their mind, right? They just need to take a nap and kind of just check out, or maybe they need to do something to where their mind's not engaged. Maybe they're just kind of like, reading a book or something like that, to where their mind is like disconnected from what's going on. But that can be rest, right? But many times if we're feeling tired and we're wore down, man, we'll just jump on this coffee, right? But many times it's not the coffee that's going to get us where we need to go, even though the coffee is going to block that adenosine, right? And give us the little bit of short burst energy. What if it is that we rest more on days where we can, so that we feel more fueled on the days leading up? And man, and like I said, I have not mastered this by any way, but I think that when you don't feel well, rather than immediately going to the place of what can I add, think about what maybe could you do with your body to feel well. Could it be movement and daily movement that could be healing? Could it be fasting and just the elimination of food? So where you like eliminate something from your life? Or could it be just resting and allowing your body and your mind to rest to where you can feel well again? I know this sounds kind of radical. And it may be something to where you try it a couple of times, you don't feel the healing experience that you're looking for, and you go down a different route. And I'm not saying you wouldn't do that, right? But what I will say is that if you're at a place, and whether you've tried a bunch of stuff and it's not working, or you're just beginning the journey of wellness in some way, what would it look like to not try to add something in, but rather do something with your body? The other side of that would be in the world of prevention. These core concepts can be really helpful in overall wellness, right? The ability to rest in a regular manner, the ability to fast from food for a specific amount of time, the ability to move your body every day. We talk so much about that on the show, but I think that in itself could be super healing and allow your body to be more resilient and your mind to be more resilient. I think we get into these places in life where our movement is either to one extreme, it's so much that we're burnt out and we're wore down, or our movement is so minimal that we're sitting in our office chair all day and we're not moving at all. And then we wonder why we're feeling really tired or down or whatever that looks like. And we haven't tried some of those innate activities that we were born to do. I think fasting is another one, right? We believe that we're meant to eat 3 meals a day with numerous snacks, where we're probably the first culture that really ever had that experience, right? Because we have this food abundance in many areas. Now, not everybody has that. I recognize that. But for many people here in the West, there is a food abundance. And so because of that, we kind of get used to that. But we're never letting our gut heal. We're never letting things calm down. We're constantly bombarding our body with stuff day in, day out, when really that's kind of not what we're meant to do, right? The body's very resilient and it can live without calories for a specific amount of time. And so what does that look like to give the gut and the liver and all those things a rest? And then lastly, rest in itself, right? Like we as humans are meant to work, but we're also meant to rest, which can feel uncomfortable to say. And I hear that sometimes that rest is a nap and sleep and getting 7 to 8 hours a night. But other times it's rest from just moving away from the things that are really heightened and finding something that's fueling to yourself. I think, and if you haven't thought about this before, I really challenge you as you're listening to this, when you're driving down the road or you're just hanging out watching this on YouTube, what are you doing for fun? Like, what is fueling to you? I think as adults, we lose those core hobbies that were so important to us as kids, right? And so then as life goes on, we kind of lose that fueling experience. And so we work and we make our food and we go to bed, or we watch TV, or we get on social media. But what would it look like to go back to some really core hobbies that were fun to you, that's fueling to you? I think that when we lose those things, not only can we become unwell, but it really sets the stage for us to be unwell, right? And I think it's a really big catalyst and a driver to not only make you not well, but also keep you from healing. So if you're driving in the room, you're like, man, I haven't had fun in a while, Or I don't even know what I would do for fun. Or I don't even know what my hobby is. Or if your hobby is just sitting and watching TV, that's not a hobby, right? What is it that you could do to fill your space and time that can be fueling to you? Maybe it's movement, so you kill two birds with one stone. Maybe it's movement while you're also not eating, and that's killing three birds with one stone, right? But at the end of the day, what are you doing to fill your time, to let your body heal? Once again, this isn't putting something in our body. This is doing something with our body, right? Because healing can occur through those ways. So if you're interested in some of that stuff, I definitely recommend to check it out. I know it's something that I try to incorporate in my own life, but I think this is just a concept of healing that's not discussed a lot, and I think it's something that we need to talk more about. And I think for each of us as humans, looking at our own lives and seeing, are we having times where we have too much abundance, right? To where we're consuming so much that we're never giving our body a rest from food? Are we doing something to where we're moving so much that we're never resting, or we're not moving enough? And then how can we incorporate this in our lives, whether you're feeling unwell or you're just trying to optimize your overall mental health? So definitely something to try. And remember, if anything else kind of catches you today outside of the concept of not putting something in, but doing something, what are you doing for fun? What's your hobbies? What's your interest? Those kind of things. Once again, if you want to get connected into the newsletter, I highly recommend to throw that email in there. It's going to be a way for us to give you some really cool information and tools to kind of elevate your mental health and all those things. But thanks for tuning in, and I hope you continue on this journey. Your body and mind will thank you.